Okay, so you know Ninja Turtles, but did you know the Ninja Turtles started their very own anime in the mid-90s? A tie-in to toy lines that saw limited release in the United States as Ninja Turtles Super Mutants and Metal Mutants? Yeah, it's an anime based on a toy, based on a cartoon, based on a comic book. That's also partly based, or at least preceded chronologically, by a manga. The anime, that is, not the comic book. The comic book was the real deal, the original, the debut. But that was 1984. This, again, is 1996, at the tail end of Turtlemania in the West. Interest in the original cartoon had all but petered out by this point. Challenged as it was by a host of copycat cartoons, meant to springboard off the success of the Turtles. There were so many of these, they virtually became a genre unto themselves. There was Biker Mice from Mars, and Street Sharks, and Samurai Pizza Cats, and SWAT Cats, the Radical Squadron, and Bucky O'Hare, and Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa, among others. Each an adrenalized shot of anthropomorphic action accompanied by the requisite toy line available for purchase at a retailer near you. But in Japan, the Turtles never really caught on, which makes the existence of Mutant Turtles Superman Legend, the anime based on a toy, based on a cartoon, based on a comic book, even more puzzling. What prompted this exercise in Japanification? Who thought it was a good idea in 1996, 3 years after the disappointing box office returns of the third Ninja Turtles movie, amidst declining toy sales and a slump in revenue, not to mention the growing irrelevance of the original cartoon, to take the Ninja Turtles and transform, transmute, transmogrify them into, well, whatever the hell this is. You've gotta hand it to Tsuburaya Productions, the studio that produced this 2-episode original video animation, or OVA as they're known in Japan. It takes balls to grab hold of a franchise as American as Ninja Turtles and attempt a total reculturalification, to coin a term. A Tokyo translation, a Fuji facelift, a Hokkaido, well, I can't think of a word beginning with H to go with Hokkaido, but you get the idea. That'd be like taking something purely, quintessentially Japanese and retooling it from the ground up, purely to appeal to American predilections and predispositions. Wait a minute. I guess that's Power Rangers, in a nutshell. And Transformers. And Godzilla, sort of. Huh. I guess it was about time Japan pilfered some of our beloved pop culture properties and made them unabashedly, unapologetically Japanese. And if Mutant Turtles Superman Legend is anything, it is unapologetically Japanese. And this is where I make an apology, a preemptive apology. I am clueless when it comes to Japanese culture. I know the basics, Tamagotchis, Pokemon, the weird fascination with baseball, but that's about it. I know enough about sushi to know I do not like sushi, and while making this video, I had to Google the difference between Sentai and hentai. Turns out, they're basically the same, both being genres of Japanese entertainment created and consumed mostly by reclusive, socially withdrawn, sexually inadequate men whose empowerment fantasies have utterly and completely undermined their capacity for amusement. Anyway, that being said, it's not outside the realm of possibility that I will say something stupid, ignorant, mindless, or moronic about Japanese media, Japanese customs, or Japanese culture in general. Just keep in mind that if I come across as insulting, I mean to be ironic. And if I come across as ironic, someone, somewhere, will still accuse me of being insufficiently sensitive to the peculiar cultural proclivities of East Asia. It's practically guaranteed I'll make a dog's breakfast out of some important facet of Japanese culture. But, that being said, making broad, authoritative pronouncements about things I know practically nothing about is an important facet of my culture, Western culture. So let's boogie. The thing begins with a recap of previous events, even though this is the first episode of an anime that lasted a total of 2 episodes. A recipe for confusion until you dig through enough Wikipedia articles written in broken English to ascertain the existence of that manga I mentioned, which ran for 3 issues under the name Super Turtles. So, the Turtles aren't just Teenage Mutant Ninjas anymore, as if that wasn't enough adjectives for one media franchise. They're super, because they can now, thanks to something called mutastones, super mutate. How do they do this? Well, obviously, by striking a pose and yelling out, in unison, Super Mutation! Alright, fair enough. The opening recap informs us that Krang and the Shredder, whose inexplicable new outfit looks like as if a samurai from feudal Japan an F-16 fighter jet, have gotten their hands on a dark mutastone that turns Bebop and Rocksteady into towering, terrifying anime versions of themselves, and Shredder into a dragon. But there's more. The mutastones can not only transform the Turtles into their super selves, but combined can merge Leonardo, Donatello, Raphael, and Michelangelo into one giant, hulking, winged superhero saint who looks nothing like any of them. Oh, and super mutated Rocksteady is most definitely not wearing pants. I'm not going to credit this entirely to Japanese influence. I mean, Donald Duck doesn't wear pants either. But still, vaguely off-putting. Next, it's time for the opening credits sequence. And what a glorious thing it is. A nearly 2-minute long, hyper-energetic burst of color and movement, scaffolded by an unbelievably upbeat theme song whose main refrain is Go Go Turtles. But which, naturally, sounds a bit more like go-go tattoos when sung. I get it, that's just how English loanwords sound when imported into Japanese, using katakana, a phonetic writing system. It's basically reproducing as closely as possible the original pronunciation, but with sounds that come more naturally to Japanese speakers. This, in case you didn't know, is a lot of fun.
Computer, コンピューター Taxi タクシー Internet インターネット
Anyway, a couple of NASA astronauts aboard the space shuttle report back to Earth that stars are mysteriously disappearing from view. Cut to Shredder and Krang, who have the Dark Mutastone and are trying to unleash the evil force within it. Something or someone called Dark Mu. Apparently, she's the reason the stars are vanishing. We're given this information in the next scene, which takes place in the Turtles' familiar underground lair, by a miniature glowing fairy, one who hovers above the TV set while they debate who could possibly be behind all this. The origin of this helpful little pixie is never explicitly stated. It may have been mentioned in the opening recap, but I was too busy contemplating Super Rocksteady's lack of pants. Anyway, the Turtles come to the conclusion, always a safe bet, that Krang and Shredder are behind all this. Speaking of Shredder, he lands, along with Bebop and Rocksteady, right above the Turtles' heads, and a fight ensues. There's a lot of very emphatic yelling, April O'Neil runs off to do some reporting, and everybody mutates. While mutated, and I get the impression this has got to be pretty standard for mid-90s anime, everybody's got the charming tendency to yell out the name of their attacks before they perform them, as if, by some strange oriental logic, screaming out something like super atrocious dragon claw attack in half-garbled English, and thus giving your opponent time to prepare for said attack, is just standard practice in warfare, an accepted part of the Japanese way of doing things. Well, no wonder they lost World War II. Wait, is that offensive? This should be a good time to mention that this is a fan translation. Mutant Turtles, Superman Legend, never saw release outside of Japan, unsurprisingly, and thus never got an official translation. You can't fault the cartoon for that. This is the only English translation available to Western audiences, subtitled sometime in the early 2000s and promulgated through the sale of bootleg DVDs ever since. Krang gleefully awaits the awakening of Dark Mew. But in comes Splinter and the little pink fairy thing. But they're too late. Dark Mew awakens, bringing a wave of destruction across the planet. Down goes Tokyo Tower. Down goes the Eiffel Tower. Down goes the picture of Mao Zedong hung outside the Imperial Palace in China. In New York, a big old nasty tidal wave comes crashing in, sweeping away Shredder and his two flunkies, while the Turtles make a hurried escape.
ビルの上を泳ぐなんて爽快。
ああ、そうかい。高所恐怖症の人には勧められないな。
スプリンター先生。
おーい。クリス・ミューも無事だったんだね。よかったよかった。
でもクランゲが闇のミュータ石を持ったまま逃げてしまったんです。早く探さないと。
と言ってもこの状態じゃ。
Oddly enough, nobody, not the Turtles, not Splinter, not the Fairy, seem that disturbed that the entire city is now underwater. That's gotta be what? 7 million people drowned in an instant? Give or take? As the Turtles lick their wounds, Dark Mew comes out of her shell, so to speak. And yeah, you guessed it, she's hot. Krang beckons her to release her superfluous power, and she does so.
嘘やめてよボスさよなら
欲しい人を亡くしちまった。
神ちゃんたち、ダーク姉ちゃんの力が生み出した最強なモンスター、ダークデビルシュレッダーよ。倒せるもんなら倒してちょうだい。
Turning Shredder into, yeah, you guessed it, a kaiju. What's a kaiju? A giant evil monster that threatens to destroy the whole goddamn place. Donatello has an idea. Lead Shredder into the city, causing untold millions of dollars in property damage, and killing even more civilians, no doubt, and drop a skyscraper on his head. It works, but Dark Mew's still out and about, and she heads off into space to destroy the Earth. From space, I guess. Why she couldn't just destroy the... Never mind. This being a mid-90s anime, the Turtles do the only reasonable thing. They thrust their hands together and shout really loudly in unison.
Saint of Mutation!
The Saint blasts off into the sky after Dark Mew, but not using his wings, though, since that would make a little too much sense. Can we just admit this whole thing is bonkers? I mean, even more bonkers than the concept of 4 mutated turtles doing ninjutsu? I feel like there should be a minimum level of realism to juxtapose against the fantastical elements, you know? The premise of the whole thing can be crazy, but the crazy's gotta live in its own little bucket. You know what I mean? So that we don't lose interest, so that we don't tune out. But forget I said anything. The space shuttle we saw earlier is still hovering above the planet, and as Dark Mew flies past, for no discernible reason, it grows a pair of eyeballs and starts jittering around like something out of a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. So much for our little bucket of realism. The Turtle Saint fights Dark Mew. Man, superpowered crystals, mutating superheroes, gigantic monsters. The only thing missing so far is a superfluous whisper of sex. Yes, Dark Mew is conspicuously hot, but not over-the-top hot. Not gratuitously hot. Not... Oh. Well, let's see that again. Right, so, superpowered crystals, mutating superheroes, gigantic monsters, and now the requisite bouncing bosoms. This thing couldn't get any more Japanese if it apologized for bumping into you in a crowded subway station. So, turns out to defeat Dark Mew, the Turtles have to unite as one and unleash their special attack. Who could have guessed? The Turtles perform something called Mega Final Saint Blade, which imprisons both the bad fairy and the good fairy in their crystals again. And Raphael helpfully explains, after the four of them magically wake up in the space shuttle safe and sound, that now that the crystals are in space, they won't be able to super mutate anymore. Huh, convenient. And so that, dear friends, is the Ninja Turtles anime from 1996. An unbelievable orgy of genre cliches, Japanese television tropes, and foreign stereotypes. Oh, holy shit, that's right, there's a second episode. Following the events of the first installment, battling Shredder, heading to space, and letting the entire population of New York drown under their watch, the Turtles are a little bummed. One can assume. And so off they go to Japan for a little rest and recuperation. Tough luck. Shredder, Bebop, and Rocksteady are transported to Japan too, in search of a new Mutastone. After the obligatory confrontation atop a bullet train, and it's a testament to the broad-minded Japanese that even 4 mutated turtles and a man-sized rat can ride the train without getting hassled. The Turtles head to Shinobi Village, where there's a clan of ninjas of Splinter's acquaintance in need of some help. See, there's a mirror, I guess. A magic mirror. The legendary mirror that possesses the strongest and the biggest power, we're told. And through some turn of logic that I admit I didn't grasp because my attention wandered, it's related to the Mutastones. Oh, and the ninjas gift the Turtles some new clothes to match the ones the action figures wear. What action figures? Well, just like the first episode was based on the Super Mutants figures released by Playmates a couple of years prior, this episode, titled The Coming of the Guardian Beasts, is based on the Metal Mutants subline, released in 1995. Hard to imagine that by that point, the Ninja Turtles had been on toy store shelves for 7 years already. Not so hard to imagine the difficulty in keeping the toy line fresh and exciting in a viciously competitive market. The line had been going in crazy directions for a couple of years now. I bet you didn't know there were Star Trek Turtles, and Apollo 11 Turtles, meant to commemorate the moon landing, and Sumo Turtles, and Turtle Trolls. And then came the Super Mutants, and then the Metal Mutants, which, I have to admit, look pretty damn snazzy. But anyway, things might be getting a bit confused, or I may just be losing the plot, but there's suddenly a ghost in the joint, and then Shredder and his goons turn up, and then the place explodes. And then a hidden fortress pops up out of a hole in the ground.
ボッシュ、あれ何かな？
これぞ忍びの里の隠し砦、キューバしのぎに出してみました。なんと
でもこれって
やりすぎだって。
At this point, I could just as well be hallucinating this shit, for all the sense the plot is making. The ghost points up. Yeah, I still don't know why there's a ghost hanging around. And they all scramble up the castle, hoping to get their mitts on the magical mirror before the other guys do. Shredder gets there first, and bam! Finally! Here's why we're here in the first place. Here's why this thing exists. Say what you will about the plot, the dialogue, the premise, the execution so far. When 3 glowing beasts pop out of the top of Mount Fuji and fuse with an evil ninja and his 2 mutated flunkies, you pay attention. Say hello to Metal Bebop, Metal Rocksteady, and Metal Shredder. Of course, the Turtles get in on the action too.
ユータドッキングおーぴったんこ変身装着メタルレオナルドメタルラファエロメタルドナテロメ
Now, I say the following with absolute confidence. There has never been, in modern times, a shameless, outrageous, audacious, indecent concatenation of direction and design such as this. The sole purpose of which, to sell shiny-looking toys to impressionable children. Yes, kids' cartoons have been hawking miniaturized plastic effigies of their animated ephemera for ages, since Ronald Reagan shrunk the FCC in the early 80s. But this is on a whole other level. The Japanese have got us beat at this game, hands down. The Bullet Train, the Ninja Village, the Ghost, it was all a junky, slapdash excuse to get to this moment. And these splashy, flashy frames of animation exist for one reason only: to look cool. So cool, everything else grows dim by comparison. You know how I know this? Because everything has grown dim by comparison. Man, is this bad ass. There's a void in my life now. A want, a yearning that wasn't there a minute and a half ago. A yearning that involves feelings of inadequacy, a general discontentment with one's station in life, and the most disturbing symptom of all, genuinely considering spending $277 Canadian dollars, plus $40 international shipping from Woodland Hills, California, on a vintage Metal Mutant Donatello from 1995. Because, well, just look at them. Look how absolutely batshit they look. How they must represent the peak, the pinnacle, the zenith of 90s anime excess. A testament to just how hard toy manufacturers will work for a minute of your attention in the dwindling days of a dying franchise. Man, I gotta wrap this up before I lose it completely. The Metal Mutant Turtles fight Metal Mutant Shredder, the Turtles win, the bad guys hightail it back to Dimension X, and the whole thing ends. There. Despite Shredder and his goons making off with 3 of the Mutastones, there was never a sequel. And our only consolation is an incredibly weird closing theme song with lyrics like, "Anyways, a love song. The Earth is still doing fine. Though the moon's been swept away, we're doing better than our future." Yeah. Here's hoping you're doing better than your future, dudes and dudettes. Till next time.